Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a new Formula 1 weekend. We have arrived to the Japanese Grand Prix, so let's see what this track has in store for us. Japan actually has a very rich history within Formula 1. Historically, it's been the decider of quite a few championships. In fact, 13 drivers were crowned champions in this race. Japan hosted its first Formula 1 race in 1976 at the Fuji Speedway, but it only lasted 2 years before they were taken out the calendar, until they came back again in 1987 at the Suzuka circuit, which is where it's currently hosted. A fun fact about the Japanese Grand Prix is that in 1994 and in 1995, they also hosted a Grand Prix at the TI circuit, meaning that for a few years there were 2 Japanese Grand Prix per season. In the early 2000s, both Fuji and Suzuka would alternate to host the Formula 1 Grand Prix, but Toyota ultimately pulled off from Fuji due to economical problems, and now it is only hosted in Suzuka, except obviously during the COVID years. The track was designed by Dutchman John Hogenholtz, and in the original drawing for the track, it passed under and over itself a total of 3 times, which is crazy to think about. Now, even though we currently don't have that, we do have one crossing on the track, making it look like an 8. This track has been modified over 8 times, but here is the current layout. The track is 5.8 kilometers long with 18 turns and a total of 53 laps per race. And if you look at the track, you'll see that it has a 40.4 meter elevation change, with its lowest point being at turns 1 and 2. Which brings up an extra challenge. The first turn leads into a sector of S-curves in turns 3 to 7, followed by the Degner curves and the track going under itself into a sharp hairpin at turn 11. The track then goes into a swift spoon curve followed by the iconic 130 radius turn. Then it goes into a triangle chicane and ends with the only DRS zone between turns 18 and 1. According to people that know way more than I do about strategies, so thank you IGP Fun, I'm going to leave their link down below. The best places for overtakes are at turn 1 and 2 and the final chicane or the Casio triangle at turns 16, 17 and 18. But there are 2 other areas that you might want to pay attention to during the race, which are the hairpin at turn 11 and the iconic 130 radius turn in turn 15, which was the center of some iconic moments in Formula 1, like Fernando Alonso overtaking Michael Schumacher in 2008. The driver with the most amount of wins in the Japanese Grand Prix is, to no one's surprise, Michael Schumacher, who won this Grand Prix in 1995, 97, 2000, 2001, 2002, and 2004 as well. And the team with the most wins is, again, to no one's surprise, McLaren, who won this race in 1977, 1988, 91, 93, 98, 99, 2005, 2007, and 2011. And the current lap record is held by none other than Lewis Hamilton himself, who set it back in 2019. As I said before, the Japanese Grand Prix is a staple in Formula 1 history and has had some of the most incredible moments in its history, especially because it used to define championships. And 2 of the most iconic moments on this track actually have to do with one of the most iconic rivalries in Formula 1, Senna and Prost. In 1989, Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost were both driving for McLaren, and they were locked in a fierce battle for the Formula 1 World Championship. The 1989 Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka was a title-deciding race, where Senna needed to win the race to overtake Prost in the championship lead. On lap 47, Senna attempted to overtake Prost at the chicane and the 2 cars collided, both ending up pushed back onto the track by the marshals, and he ended up winning the race. But he was later disqualified for cutting the chicane and for having help in the restart, which meant that Prost was awarded the 1989 championship title. This decision was actually very controversial, with many people believing that Senna was disqualified unfairly and that the championship was manipulated for Prost. But Senna got his revenge 1 year later in 1990 when Prost moved to Ferrari and Senna stayed at McLaren. The 1990 Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka was, again, a title-deciding race, with Senna needing to win to secure the championship. And on the first lap, in the first turn, Senna and Prost collided against each other, having to retire from the race. Which meant that Senna won the 1990 championship, and he got revenge for what happened the year before.
Berger, the grid is clear, the lights go!
Netflix actually has a really good series about Senna, and these two moments are included in that series, so if you want to know more about what happened and the rivalry, I really recommend watching the show. But now it's time to see how this year's race is looking. Some worthy things to mention about this year's race is that last week we had a change of drivers with Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda swapping seats. I've talked all about it in another video. Whether that's a good or bad decision on Red Bull's part is something that I think we'll see this race. And I'm sure that everyone watching will be paying special attention to these two drivers this weekend. Another thing that is happening this weekend that might be a little bit exciting and a little bit sad at the same time is that Ryo Hirakawa will drive the first practice for Alpine. Obviously, it's not sad for him. He'll be driving a free practice and he'll be doing it in his home country, which must be exciting for everyone. But he will be driving in Jack Doohan's car and not Pierre Gasly's, which is what I originally thought was going to happen. Now, this decision tells me at least that Jack Doohan's fate is pretty much sealed. I mean, it has been for a while, but I think losing a practice session when you have to prove yourself to the team that you're capable of driving that car is not a great thing. Although, it is worth noting that Jack Doohan has raced in this track before. In fact, he drove in the Asian Formula 3 Championship in 2019, and he won 2 races at Suzuka, so maybe he was replaced because he already feels confident on this track. I'm just trying to see the bright side for him at this point. Weather-wise, there is an 80% chance of rain. However, this is supposed to happen in the morning and the race takes place at 2 p.m. So the chances of it raining during the race are very slim, but you never know in Suzuka. And now that we've got all of that out of the way, let's talk about my predictions for this weekend. A driver that I think is going to do very well in this race is Liam Lawson. I think going back to VCAP is the best decision for his career at the moment, even though he probably didn't have a choice. But as I said in a previous video, I don't think he should have been promoted in the first place. And now that he's back, he seems happy, he seems comfortable with the team welcomed him very nicely. Obviously, he might be playing everything up for the cameras, but I genuinely think he will do good in VCAP. And he is also familiar with the car, which I think is very helpful. And contrary to the previous 2 races, Liam's actually familiar with the Suzuka track. He actually raced in the Super Formula in 2023 and he did pretty well on this track. So I definitely think he will end up in the points this weekend and probably above Yuki. Now for my podium, I put on 3rd place George Russell. I've realized that over the past few weekends, I have been underestimating George Russell and I'm not sure why. He's doing exactly what he said he would do. He's being very consistent during the races. You actually don't see him during the entire race, and suddenly he snuck his way into the podium. If you look at the Drivers' Championship, he's actually 3rd on the standings, so he's doing pretty good for himself. For 2nd place, I went with Max Verstappen. Honestly, I don't know why. Max actually hasn't been doing as terribly as I imagine in my head. I was actually looking at the drivers' standings and he's actually 2nd in the championship, which is not bad, but it's not Max Verstappen standards. So I think that's why I think he's doing worse than he's actually doing. But anyways, I put Max in 2nd place on the podium this weekend. I think that during the entire Lawson-Tsunoda debacle last week, it was said that Max went to the factory and was talking with the engineers about what they would have to change in the car and how to improve it, and maybe they actually found the solution for the car to make it better. But even though the car has supposedly been messed up for the past races, you can always trust on Max to bring in incredible results. And for 1st place, to no one's surprise, I went with Lando Norris. I think that McLaren will continue on the top for the next foreseeable future. To be honest, I think Oscar has as good of a chance as Lando to win the race, but I went with Lando. There's not much to it. Now I know that I didn't put Ferrari on the podium, but I want to say this. I think there is a fine line between complete disaster and utter brilliance and greatness. And I think that Ferrari might be towing the line on that, leaning more towards the disaster part in the last couple of races. But I genuinely think that they just have to find that sweet spot for everything to go right for them. And I think that with what happened in the last race in Shanghai with the double disqualification, they just hit rock bottom. And the only way to go now is up. This is the end for the 2025 Japanese Grand Prix preview. I hope you enjoyed the video. But now it's time for your guys' predictions. Let me know down in the comments who you think will win this race, who will utterly fail miserably in this race. Let me know other weird predictions that you might have for Japan. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to see more Formula 1 content. And I will see you all next week. Bye bye.